This is Milton Keane, and he served in Europe in World War II. He's going to tell us what he did over there.
Well, I joined the Navy, and don't ask me for dates because I'm not sure. 1942 sometime. And they sent me down to Hollywood, Florida, to gunnery school. And after gunnery school, where I almost got killed, we were on the clay shooting range, and another gentleman and I with the shotguns in our hand, and the other gentleman put the butt of the shotgun down and hit the pavement, and the shot went right up between us. So that was my first experience. Then we get on a destroyer and zigzagged all the way to Iceland. And we got to Iceland, and did a lot of flying I joined the crew, joined my squadron VP 63, and I got on the crew, and we started doing a lot of training with the British and different aspects of chasing after subs. So then in the middle of the night, we went off to England after spending some time at Camp Quit Your Belly Aching in Iceland. And we went to England, and on the way, a gentleman who I thought was quite ancient, he was about 35, started breaking down, bawling his eyes out, crying. He had children at home and a wife. He says, "I know I'm going to get killed. I know I'm going to get killed." And not being too sympathetic, something I always regret, I didn't show a little more interest in his behavior. I let him cry. And then we got to England, and we joined a squadron of Sunderlands, they call them, shot Sunderlands, English seaplanes. And we started patrolling off France for submarines. And we call it Junker Rally. It was a Ju-88 were out after us. And we would do different legs with the Sunderlands, the English Sunderlands. And we go right off of Brest, 100 miles off of Brest, depending on what leg we were on. We changed legs all the way down. We'd be in the air as much as 12, 13, 14 hours. I think one time it was 16 hours. And we'd come back at night, and we'd get blips. We had the first radar that was in existence, to my knowledge. And we'd pick up radar blips. It was fixed antenna. And we go in on them, and they disappear. And of course, we knew then that they were submarines. And we start circling, trying to pick up. We had MAD, which is magnetic airborne detection, and the sub we figured would come out of the circle, and we went round and round and round and round, trying to, at 55 feet, trying to pick up their magnetic field. Morocco was pretty much like it is today, I think, with camels and all kinds of people that were very strange to us. And we would finally sent to from Port Leone, Morocco, to Gibraltar. And we'd land in Gibraltar and take off in the morning. We stay overnight, take off in the morning, and head out to the Straits of Gibraltar, where we work in conjunction with another PBY, Catalina, and we go back and forth from Spanish to Morocco to Spain. And we'd fly at 55 feet, hoping to pick up their magnetic field. And so after doing that for many, many, many days, we would come back and to Port Leone, and in the morning we'd take off, and we'd stock up on all kinds of flight rations, and the flight ration would consist of cans of Irish potatoes, we call them, and fried chicken in what we call shit bags, where you shit in. And they were all nice heavy-duty wax paper. And we would, so one time we picked up all the flight rations, and we get in the plane, and we started our takeoff, and I was in the after station tunnel hatch holding down a leaking flare tube, and I hear the plane shuddering, and next thing you know, I'm out in the mud, lying on the ground some feet away from the plane, and I looked up, the whole plane was exploding. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up in the hospital, and one of the gentlemen was there visiting us, who was on my crew, who was off medical. Someone took his place because he said it was the best case of what do you call it, clap that he ever got, because it saved him from being on the crew. And so we continued on. We slept in tents, and we had a whole bunch of double bunks and pretty crowded tents, and the food was good. And one time we took off and we went to Gibraltar and did our daily tour, going back and forth the Straits of Gibraltar from Spanish Morocco to Spain. And on the way back at about 1,000 feet, I jumped into bed to take a nap. We had a nice bed, a nice little cot with canvas bottom, and someone came up and started yelling, "Milton, Milton, we're going down." And so I jumped out of my cot there and looked over in the tower, which is the space between the fuselage and the wings, where a tower man would be, watches over the fuel gauges and other gauges, and he had wobble pumps, and he hit the wrong wobble pump, and the place was just like a shower of gasoline coming down. And come to find out, we lost a lot of planes that way because of the rubber hoses up in the tower. And but our plane fortunately didn't explode. We just assumed that the other planes we lost exploded. So we hit the water, both engines were out, and we hit the water, and the plane bounced up in the air and bounced down to the water, and everyone was injured except me and another guy. And I had put my back up against the bulkhead in the after station, and with my head between my knees, and up in the navigational section, the navigator hit his head on the navigating table, and another one had I don't know what he thought a fire extinguisher was going to do, because that wouldn't possibly help. And the fourth, the inertia force through his arm almost took it right out of the socket. I never saw him again. And so finally we got in the wing, and the pilot sent me down to look at what damage there was. And I told him the plane is flooded, come down inside the plane and come back up on the wing. And we started to abandon the plane. We had one life raft with the flight mechanic put out, and the thing took off in the waves. The waves were so high. And so we got we put lines all over the next raft, and all got out, and those of us who weren't injured hung along the side, and the rest of the crew got inside the boat, and a couple of hours later we were picked up. And so then we got back to the base, and we continued. So finally, one time we picked up an MAD indication, and we would fire. And my job was to set up a float-like, bazooka-like equipment in the tunnel hatch that would fire rocket flares. And every time we went around and picked up another MAD indication, the operator of the MAD would fire a firing key, and the float light would go flying off, and then I keep loading it till we had a whole line of float lights going down through the Straits of Gibraltar. And so finally we were right. The pilot took over the MAD that has a little indicator in the cockpit, and he had a firing key that would fire off 15 bombs in each wing, all rocket-fired bombs. And he went down the line of float lights and fired the rocket, and we didn't see any signs of success. But later on, we discovered that the sub had to come to the surface. The 30 bombs that were fired off all had contact fuses, and they had to come in contact with the submarine to explode. And evidently they did explode. But one of my jobs was to take the massive camera and take a picture on it when I wasn't in the after station. To take a picture of the pattern of bombs hitting the water, so we'd adjust the rails properly to get a good pattern on the water. And one time we were loading, we'd go out in the water in a boat and load bombs on the wings. And one time we dropped a bomb, but fortunately you don't put the contact fuses in the bomb until after they're on the wing. So another time we went through the same thing. We got another sub, and neither one. I never saw a German sub, and the only way I knew they sank them was because the English destroyers, sub chasers, would sink them after they came to the surface. So we had we got the credit for getting the sub disabled enough to have to go to the surface. So we got my crew got 2 submarines, and so we stayed there. And then I finally went to the when the war was over and President Roosevelt died, and the war was over, and they were going to ship the whole squadron home. And they told me we were going to go to fly across the ocean to South America, rather, and go up to the United States from there. So they put all the ground officers that worked administrative duties on my plane and other planes, and a whole bunch of us got kicked off our plane and had to go in an LST. That's a landing craft with a flat bottom. And so we were quite upset by that time, about having to do that. And with the LST, and all the time I was in the Navy, I never smoked. So someone offered me a cigarette on the way back, and by the time I got to the United States, I was smoking, which wasn't good. I think I would have never smoked if it wasn't for that. And so then we got to the States. And we went to I can't remember where we were, someplace, I forget. And anyway, I went to I had a sore throat. I went to sick bay, and I said to the corpsman, I have a sore throat. And the corpsman took out this bottle that squeezes a great big rubber bulb on the back end of a glass container, a great big glass container he's holding. He says, open your mouth. And just as he was about to squeeze the rubber ball that squeezed the ingredients out into your throat, someone yelled out, hold it, that's for crabs. So I never did find out what that was, what would have happened then. Then they sent us to Boston to this Fargo building, and they put me in the blue room, and brig, and there's a guard, and a key something or other, I forget, Keane or something. And VE Day, they everyone was celebrating VE Day. I let a couple of them out of the cell, and one of them threatened to take a towel and wrap it around my neck. So I started waving the bully club, getting them all back in. And then I finally was discharged, and that was it.
How many times did you go down in your plane?
Twice.
Twice.
Well, one was we hit the plane hit a jetty of rocks, and that was it. Everyone was killed. 7 guys were killed, and one other person I got out.
And the second time you went down in the ocean?
Right, yeah. So that was it.
And what about you going into the subway when you fell in the subway?
Oh, that was ancient history. That was when I was about 9 years old. So I remember my mother lying on the subway, the floor of the subway when they took me out. I fell down between the train as it was coming in the station. That was when I was about 9. That's about it.
So, how old are you now?
86.
Wow. So you've survived the train in Boston, lighting Arlington on fire, which we haven't talked about, but that's a story.
Arlington?
In a
Oh,
couple
yeah.
of,
Oh,
in a
yeah.
couple of,
Get 'em.
in a couple of plane crashes, plus getting a gun shot off right between you. So
Right.
you lived sort of a charmed life.
And the plane crash where everyone was, 7 guys were killed. I felt the plane shuddering, and I was in the after station tunnel hatch area. And next thing I know, I'm out in the mud. And I look up, and the whole plane is exploding.
Mm.
And the pilot had went off course. We were taking off at night in the morning with flare paths, and the plane veered too far to the right and hit the stone jetties that are there to prevent the erosion of the river banks. And the plane, I looked up, the whole plane was exploding. So I really have no idea how I get out. All I know is I woke up in the hospital.
Okay,
And
thanks.
that's it.